This is significant because of where it came from. John McClain of the Houston Chronicle knows the Texans as well as anyone, and he reported on Wednesday afternoon that the Texans could be trading Deshaun Watson to the Miami Dolphins this week. And that tells me it's coming from the Texans, the team that he covers. This is something that, at a minimum, if he heard it from someone else, he ran it by them or it originated with them. The Texans are ready to move on from Deshaun Watson, as they should be.
Yeah.
And the window is closing on the opportunity to trade him before March of 2022. We are 12 days away from the expiration of the trading period. And as I've said all season long, if Stephen Ross wants Deshaun Watson, go get him. And here we are with 5 straight losses. And we mentioned earlier in the week, Deshaun Watson may be the only way to save Brian Flores and Chris Grier at this point. It's all adding up. Go take those unused lottery tickets that you don't know how to scratch properly into winners and give them to the Texans. And take the winner that they scratched off 4 years ago. Welcome him in. You got a franchise quarterback. And it doesn't mean it's going to change everything, but it's going to put you in a better spot than you are with the current quarterback that you have. All due respect, but it's the truth.
Yeah, it's the truth. Come on. I mean, let's not even close to like a conversation. We're talking about Deshaun Watson when healthy, hands down, no-brainer, top 5 quarterback in football, top 5 player in football. I mean, he's a game changer. He's a game changer. They're going to the playoffs with the Houston Texans football team that wasn't necessarily great all those years. Even last year, they were competitive in so many games. It was only because of one reason, because of number 4. So, that's where it is a no-brainer. And I hope we're not at the point where we're looking at, like, hot seat Brian Flores and Chris Grier. I hope we're not. I understand that's, like, the era we're living in, but I mean, damn.
No, and it's the owner that they have. It's driven by who's making the decisions.
Well,
Stephen Ross is not bashful about firing people.
Well, that's great. I know, but sometimes he might have to fire himself and just be like, wait, I need to be quiet for a second. First off, like, hey, Flores and Grier have done a lot of good stuff. They have. Has it been perfect? No. They were on the edge of the playoffs last year with a team that I don't think any of us thought was really a playoff team, but they beat a lot of teams that we didn't expect them to beat. And there they were in the playoff, or, in the last game of the year with a chance to go into the playoffs against the Buffalo Bills. It's a young team. It's still finding its way. And, with the cherry on top of, like, hey, you're a little bit in this situation, if you listen to any rumor, because of Stephen Ross wanted Tua. And you couldn't tell anybody else any different down there in Miami. Tua. And, I've had some people tell me this week, it's like the first week that, South Florida is finally like, well, maybe Tua isn't the guy. Like, well, oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say. He's not as long as Tua is your quarterback, you're going to have to manage the game to a degree. He's never going to be a superstar. That's not going to happen. I'm confident in saying that. I've seen enough. He's a good player. He's a low-level starter in the NFL. They have to call plays just like they did last week that really just fit what he can do. They have to be careful about calling other plays because he can't do them at a high level. So with that hamstrings their offense in a great way. And I think that's where, I hope Flores and Grier aren't on the hot seat. And I totally understand them, looking at Deshaun Watson as a trade-up here at the quarterback position.
Isn't it amazing that it took losing to the Jaguars, who had lost 20 games in a row,
right,
only the second team in 102 NFL seasons to lose 20 in a row, to wake up the Tua Mafia to the possibility that Tua ain't the guy. And it's entirely possible, on one hand, to say Tua's a very nice person.
100%.
We enjoy talking to him. And on the other hand, he's not a franchise quarterback, and he never will be. We don't need to give it another year. We don't need to give it another month. We don't need to give it another week. Our eyes are telling us what we need to see. And, Chris, I keep going back to this. To the extent that Tua was Stephen Ross, somebody in that organization needed to go visit him in New York, and that's one of the fundamental problems with the Dolphins, frankly. The owner doesn't live in Miami, although with Stephen Ross, maybe it's better than he doesn't, frankly. But somebody's got to go.
I don't think he heard you. You whispered it. What'd you say?
Steve. Sorry, Steve. Maybe it's better that you don't live in Miami, frankly, all due respect. But maybe somebody needs to go to him and say, hey, look, hey, Steve, I know you're a busy guy, but let's have lunch in your conference room in New York City. We'll fly up to you. You don't have to come down here. It's fine. It's fine. We'll come to you. We'll take the time and do it. And we want to show you a little something. And, it almost reminds me of, what was it? It was the story from the USFL when Donald Trump was bound and determined, I think, to bring Doug Flutie to the Generals. Right? And they brought in a guy who was 5'10", and they brought in a guy who was 6'5". And it's like, this is the difference. I mean, it's not just that from Tua and to Justin Herbert, but take the film up to Stephen Ross and play it for him and say, here's Tua, here's Herbert. Here's Tua.
Yeah.
Here's Herbert. Somebody needed to do that and bust through that bubble of it's got to be Tua, it's got to be Tua, instead of cowering to the idea that the owner wants Tua, so the owner gets Tua, and we better not push back, because what if we're wrong? It's okay if he's wrong, but the problem is now that it's blowing up, he ain't taking ownership of this.
Definitely
He's
not.
going to say, I don't make these decisions.
Yeah.
I don't make these decisions. That's on my people. And if my people aren't making good decisions, I'm going to go get people who can make better decisions.
I mean, listen, maybe he does think like that. It's a hard conversation to have with an owner who, from everything you hear, seemed hell-bent on wanting Tua. So I don't know. Can you talk him out of that situation? I don't know how. Hey, listen, I don't know how strongly Chris Grier and Brian Flores felt about Justin Herbert, as we talked about, a little bit last week. Like, hey, there was a lot of people that didn't see it, because again, everybody gets obsessed with just wins and losses and stats, and they go, well, he wins and his stats are great. And I want to go down like what you're saying, what they need to do with Stephen Ross. I want to bring like everybody in and go, okay, yes, his stats are better and he wins and loses. Look at how open this receiver is, and anybody on planet Earth can hit him. And then now let's watch a Justin Herbert incompletion where it was an incompletion, but the guy was covered like glue and he had a window to throw it in right here, and he actually threw it there, but the defender's hand was there or the receiver couldn't catch it. But people can't see through that sometimes. That's the problem with quarterback evaluation right now. It's all about analytics and stats driven. And then, of course, the pressure of the public with the wins and losses, and Tua's a winner, and that's all they've been sold on. And he has $1 million smile, and he's easy to like and everything that way, and that's why we root for him. It sounds like we don't root for him here. It's not the case. And if I get negative about Tua, it's not about Tua. It's about the people who are constantly on my case about it. Exactly right. But, yeah, it's one of the great conversations of quarterback evaluations in the NFL right now. And, some people get tricked by those things we're talking about.
By the way, my vague memory ended up being accurate. July 12, 2016, an item from PFT that was based upon Tim Rowan, then of the MMQB.com, taking a look at Donald Trump's time as the owner of the New York area Generals.
Yeah.
Here it is. After Trump bought the team, a decision had to be made at the most important position on the field. Coach Walt Michaels wanted to draft Randall Cunningham. Trump wanted Doug Flutie. At one point, Michaels used two of his assistant coaches, one who was 6'3" and the other who was 5'9", to demonstrate the size differences between the two players. Trump nevertheless insisted on Flutie, and as I added in parenthetical, perhaps Michaels should have done a hand size comparison instead. So, that's the difference between Tua and Herbert. We see it now. And again, Chris, I don't have the time to do the whole watching the film of 1,000 different guys.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm here.
And acting right, but you saw Herbert is higher than Tua.
Yes, no doubt.
I don't see how, knowing what we know now, I don't see what people saw, because we've been with both guys face to face.
Yeah,
and Tua just, if I saw Tua walking down the street, I'd say that guy's not an NFL quarterback.
Yeah,
he doesn't have the build.
Exactly.
Right? You got to have a certain thickness. You got to have a certain size to make it work. And, hey, look, Russell Wilson's gotten it done. But Russell Wilson is
a different
like a
look.
Tank.
He's rocked up. Right, exactly. Same with Kyler Murray. They have a look where you go, I don't know what he is, but he's a good athlete. That's what you're talking about, I think. Sorry.
Even Drew Brees has that vibe.
No doubt about it. Broad shoulders,
but
long arms, big hands, and it's bigger than a 6-foot guy in a lot of ways, if that makes sense. Right.
Tua doesn't have that.
No.
Tua doesn't have that.
No. And we saw Herbert
and Justin
at the Combine.
Herbert does because he's 6'5".
Yeah, we saw Herbert at the Combine. He's one of those guys that's 6'5", and he's 240, and he doesn't even look 240. And you go, man, when he starts to become like a man and fill out here, he's going to look like, damn RoboCop in his uniform. You're not going to be able to stop him, and that's what he's starting to look like. I mean, look at him out there. He's big, broad shoulders, and he's just, whoom. I mean, he's unbelievable that way. So, yeah, I get you. That would have been enough to scare me in a lot of ways. And, hey, I don't know. I don't get it either. Hey, Mike, I mean, I'm originally the guy who had Jordan Love a little bit ahead of Tua in the draft conversation. I never saw it with Tua, really. So, but again, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. It's not easy. You're going to be wrong at this. But, yeah, that one was one that I think was not that hard to be right about, honestly, in my opinion.
By the way, when Flutie ended up struggling for the New Jersey Generals, John Barron, a vice president of the Trump Organization, began contacting the media to complain openly about Doug Flutie's contract. Of course, many believe John Barron was actually Donald Trump himself. So maybe Stephen Ross.
Oh, is that when he was like doing?
Off.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Maybe somebody who is a vice president of Stephen Ross's business needs to start calling the media to complain about the fact that they drafted Tua instead of Justin Herbert. Oh, and by the way, Ross and Trump are very good friends. So there's a big fat thread. This isn't a tiny little comparative here. This is an apples to apples comparison of whiffing on a quarterback when it's clear that the guy who owns the team wanted Tua, and it's also clear that the guy who now owns the team wants Deshaun Watson. And if you want him, go get him. I said that 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, you did.
If you want him, go get him. Don't screw around with this idea of, we don't want to give up these draft picks, because your draft picks are all busts. Your first-round picks. Tua, Austin Jackson, Noah Igbenogany. Are you kidding me? 3 first-round picks from 2020. Hey, great job getting 3 first-round picks.
Yeah.
Not great job using those first-round picks.
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, Austin Jackson, it's still debatable, as we're talking about. Same with the corner, Igbenogany, like you talked about.
Igbenogany.
Yep, sorry. I'm going to get that right one day. I really need to practice that one. Sorry about that. Yeah, but you're right about that. There's no doubt. They're a little, right now not looking great, looking like a little bit of a swing and a miss. And, just so we get this straight, right? I think we got this. Dolphins got 1 first-round pick this year, if I remember correctly, right? Because they traded it with the Eagles after the 49ers. Do I got that right? They have one left.
They have one left
next
year.
And then they have 2 the next year, I believe, right?
Yes.
So they got 3 here in the next 2 years to play with. And certainly that should be enough to, entice the Texans to make a deal if that does happen. Hey, one of the things I want to know
is, you can go 3 years out too, so they could actually do 4 first-round picks if they want to.
Right.
And also we've got the issue with the criminal case.
Yeah.
That has yet to make it to a grand jury.
No doubt.
The 22 civil complaints, and that's why I've said all along the fair way to do this is tie the ultimate compensation to the availability over the next 3 years. But I think from the Texans' perspective, they're saying, you're not drafting this or trading for this guy for the next 3 years. You're trading for this guy for the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's right.
So
you're right.
We shouldn't have to play games about how much he can play the next few years, because he may be playing 16 or 17, as the case may be, in 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. That's what you're trading for to get, not a guy that's going to be a short-term QB. And that's why I think it's not impossible that they trade for Deshaun Watson and keep Tua. Everybody thinks they're going to either trade Tua to the Texans, who I don't think want him, or unload Tua onto someone else. You may need Tua for the rest of the year, because it's entirely possible the moment that you trade for Deshaun Watson, the league wakes up to the Deshaun Watson case and says, number one, this is one hell of a distraction from the Washington football team situation, and number two, we got to put this guy on paid leave now. We got to show we're tough. We got to take a stand.
Right.
And then you don't have Deshaun Watson for the rest of the season, so you need Tua.
Well, you're right. I have a hard time thinking that'll go play out that way if they do trade Deshaun Watson. I think they'll want to end that discussion, not give Tua a chance to look good and have those issues. But I want to go back to a comment you made, because I got pretty good knowledge that the Houston Texans, from what I've heard from people in the league and in the know, they don't want Tua. That that's, I think, kind of the unspoken thing here, where if this trade goes down, I've been led to believe by a few people that there might be a third team involved here that wants Tua. And that's maybe part of the gymnastics of making this trade happen. And again, hey, one other thing too. Let's just not forget this. You know, the Eagles, I don't know why they wouldn't be in this conversation right now. You know, again, I mean, listen, it's not like it's, you know, the year's over, but I think we look at the Eagles and go, hey, they're not a playoff. They're not. I don't expect them to go to the playoffs. I don't. And their number one issue is hands down quarterback. There's no other way to say it. The Eagles' offense is good at every other position. They have a good receiving core. They have a really good offensive line. They have a really good tight end. And the reason they're 2-4 is because of the quarterback. The defense is one of the 5-10 best defenses in football too. So that's where I look at them, and you know, I just wonder if they're going to jump into this conversation, and we might hear rumors about them here in the next few days too.
And let's do what we often do in situations like this and be realistic about why this is coming out, when it's coming out, and where it's coming out from. John McClain, Houston Chronicle, covering the Texans. Texans putting it out there. I think it's fair to suggest that this is something that comes from the Texans. We love John McClain. I don't want to anger him by source speculating, but I don't think it's a stretch to say he's getting this from the Texans. This may be the, hey, anyone else out there that may want Deshaun Watson, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Right.
And whether it's the Eagles, whether it's whoever. You know, a few weeks ago, the Broncos would have said, nah, we're good.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, the Panthers would have said, nah, we're good. You know, now, as we're getting closer and closer to the deadline, maybe you could lure some of these other teams back to the table. And this is why you move now, because here's how you got to reconcile this. There's a chance the guy's getting put on paid leave, so why are you doing it now anyway? Well, because if you do it now, you may be able to get him for less than in March when they line up out the door to get him.
Right.
Because not only do you have to worry about the Eagles and the Panthers and the Broncos then if you're the Dolphins, you got to worry about any of these other teams who finally said, hell with the guy who plays quarterback for us.
Right. Yeah, 100%. I would think that would be the value of making it happen now, that you get it done, you get it for the low to an extent as far as like what you're talking about, and you don't get in a bidding war with, you know, maybe 8 other teams in football who are looking to upgrade the quarterback position. Because, again, Deshaun Watson is the type of talent where even if you have a good quarterback, you know, teams are going to look. They're going to look, period. It's like the rumors we heard about the Raiders last year with Deshaun Watson. That was a little bit in the spring. Yeah, hey, Derek Carr's really good. He's top 10-ish quarterback in football, but he's not Deshaun Watson. And that's, you know, I think that's where it could be scary if you wait too long here, if you're the Eagles or the Dolphins or a team that's interested in Watson.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's coming up now, because we've got 12 days until the window slams shut until 2022. I think the trade deadline is too early. I frankly don't think there should even be a trade deadline, but it's coming, and I think that's why this is bubbling up now. Because look, back in late August, early September, when I started reporting that people believed Watson was going to be traded and the most likely destination was the Dolphins, that wasn't people just pulling stuff out of their rear end.
No, absolutely not.
There was momentum in that direction.
100%.
But at the end of the day, the two teams couldn't reach a deal on compensation, and that may be what happens again. Who knows? But it did. Look, that has marred the confidence of Tua Tagovailoa, and we publicly advised him at the time, internalize it. Use it as motivation. Go out there and play better than you ever have and show them why they shouldn't want Deshaun Watson. And what happened? Week 2, he suffered broken ribs. And then when he finally comes back, it's against the Jaguars, and he doesn't look very good. And I won't be surprised if they lose to the Falcons this week, especially now that this is back on the front burner, and it may rattle him again. So it's just a distraction that the Dolphins don't need to deal with, and it all goes back to their owner. And you can't fire the owner, even though plenty of fan bases should be wishing that you could, because so much of the dysfunction that we see trickle down to people who are otherwise competent, professional, and capable, that dysfunction isn't coming from them. That dysfunction, Chris, is coming from the very top. And it's no accident that the Dolphins have stunk for the most part of the last 12 years, because Stephen Ross has been the controlling owner of the Dolphins for every day of the last 12 years.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. Yeah, there's definitely, some dots you can connect there. And, yeah, it does seem like Stephen Ross sticks his nose in there maybe a little bit more than other owners in football, minus the guys who are the acting GMs of their teams, like the Jones family, where –
That's it, though. That's it.
That's really it. You're right.
Is the GM.
No, you're right. As I was saying it, I was going, wait, they are the only ones that are really like that. And, yeah.
And you'd never pull it off today. When Bezos buys a team, he ain't making himself GM. If he does, he gets shouted out the door.
I hope so. Right.
Pre-internet, pre-talk radio to the point where it is now.
Right.
You ain't getting away with buying a team and making yourself GM in today's climate. And I'm glad, because this is a good segue to what we're going to talk about in the next segment. But when D. Smith, the executive director of the NFLPA, was on with Bryant Gumbel Tuesday night on Real Sports on HBO, he said that the NFL is less a corporation than it is a feudal oligarch system.
Yeah.
And hopefully the thing we're going to talk about next, the current status of the Washington football team scandal, will get more people to wake up to the fact that these are American oligarchs that own these teams.
100%.
And they want nothing more than to hide behind someone. They hide behind Goodell on league matters. They hide behind their general managers on coaches when they're throwing all sorts of ingredients into the stew that don't belong. It's not me. It's them. A wise man once told me the only thing better than being rich and famous is being rich. And these American oligarchs do not want to be criticized. So they want to stir the soup without ever being called out for how the soup tastes at a team level and at the league level.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.